Okay, perfect. Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to another week of Data Engineering Weekly Podcast. We call it as Dudecast now. So as usual, Ashwin with us. Ashwin been traveling for last 3 weeks. It's hard to get hold of him. He's always on the road. And one of the key summit he's attended is Gartner Data and Analytical Summit. So this week edition, we're just going to talk about Ashwin's experience traveling and meeting with a lot of customers. I know what is trending in the industry. I think this is a real pulse of the data industry rather than watching through a lot of LinkedIn content providers. Something like Abhi Sheshalam kind of recently posted kind of very well resonated with me is like both the data mesh and data contract concept slowly started to die because there's too much of meme came to explain the concept, and then like there's never been a deep technical discussions around that. That essentially kill a lot of interesting concepts. So let's jump on and see what Ashwin's take on the industry right now. Hey Ashwin.
Everyone. Thanks, Ananth. But I think I'll have a lot of viewpoints from you as well. You've been traveling for the last 3 weeks, or more than that, hitting the roads, meeting customers. I think it'll be a good exchange between us in terms of what we learn from the market. And more interestingly, what did we hear from people coming to our booths or just talking to us in person over coffee or a snack break, right? Uh, I think more as you rightly titled it. I think it's what the pulse of the actual customer use cases are. There are aspirational aspects of things. There are ground level foundational re-architecture that is required. So we'll discuss as we progress through in terms of what those discussion points are. We largely focus on the data management layer, not necessarily on the Gen AI / analytic layer, but focus on the data management. That's where my ears and eyes were glued to largely for the last couple of weeks. So we'll share a lot of intel from there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Gartner Summit is one of the things that you attended in Mumbai. I
Yeah.
was not able to do that despite I got a last minute ticket. Somehow I missed it. We were texting in Bangalore what to do. So, what are the key takeaway you found in those Gartner Summit? Like combining with your overall experience, the last month or so on the road. Um, if we had asked like, what would be the key highlights to the audience? What do you say?
Uh, I think um I think Gartner leads in on a fabric-based story and how fabric can enable data product. But before we get there, I think the foundational aspects of thing is the hype cycle around models and Gen AI has kind of settled down and it's hitting a realistic reality check right now. Not a lot of use cases have gone into production, is what a lot of partners do tell me. So. Uh, Whether it's Gartner, whether it's the meetings that I was in with customers or some of the SI partners that I work with, across the pillar, I think there was one thing that's common, right? Getting your data ready for AI, or what Gartner then calls it as AI readiness, right? So I think that's a big theme that has been there across the spectrum. In fact, I also attended another session by Nandan Nilekani, co-founder chairman of Infi, and the guy behind Aadhaar as well. So even his summary was around AI readiness, how Gen AI is going to revolutionize the space, but how important it would be to rebuild a lot of the foundational architecture. Because so far, for the last 30 years, the entire data management layer, the data warehousing layer, or the analytic layer was geared towards structured data. I think that shift in paradigm from structured to unstructured and try and bringing both the spectrums together, but also solving hundreds of typical traditional issues that we still face in the structured world is the whole AI readiness story, right? I think that re-platforming is more important. We'll go a little bit more deeper on what that AI readiness looks like, what that tech stack should look like, etc. But then one of the outcomes of an AI readiness platform, it could be a data product, and ideally should be a data product. So that leans in towards data product, which is I think what Gartner is also positioning it heavily. And I think very interestingly, the conference, a lot of sessions were around data products. A lot of customers were talking about data products. Again, let's also do a little bit more deep dive on what is a data product, because a data object an object is not a data product. So we'll go a little bit more deeper on that, and the platforms that are going to come up in that particular space around data products. I think uh, definitely AI readiness data products are top of the line discussion that some of the enterprising customers, some of the aspiring customers story or investment is going to be. So AI readiness data products definitely top of the pyramid. But I think the promise of AI is definitely going to be there, right? So how can you augment your entire stack with AI enabled systems is also a central theme. I think not a vendor, a product goes by without asking these questions around, hey, how can I augment the product, the use case with AI systems, right? So whether it's Copilot, whether it is generating data quality rules automatically through Copilot based interfaces, natural language to code, things like that. I think at every step in the process, people are wanting to augment the AI readiness system. I think that's another area. I think the last bit, just two more points, which I would like to cover is how do you balance complexity? I think one of the key highlights of some of the sessions that the Gartner analysts lead in, and I think kudos to most of the analysts there, is how they advise people to balance the complexity of what their stack is currently to how they should refactor their stack to evolving use cases, to adopt Gen AI, to adopt AI at scale, etc. I think balancing the complexity was another theme. But last but not the least, I think I've heard it from several senior leaders in this space, as well as from some of the Gartner analysts themselves, is around the whole data literacy program. I think data literacy was a very top program a couple of years back. It's naturally had a slow death. People never spoke about data literacy extensively for the last couple of years. I think we've been carried away with more data related tech investments and modernization journeys. I think I would also like to stress upon the fact that while all of your AI investments can make a lot of returns for you, but the whole data literacy game has to be stepped up for you to realize the value of AI, to ensure that the data users, the final end user of a platform, of a data, uh, is able to get meaningful insights out of the data that is in front of him, right? So I think that data literacy needs a rebirth. We all are coming from a BI world, now moving to and pivoting to a Gen AI world. As end consumers, we are all using ChatGPT and other LLM platforms for solving some of our day-to-day problems and issues, helping with homework, etc. But how does data literacy in a Gen AI world look like, right? I think how do users adopt? I think that's the final pillar that was being discussed in the conference. I know short was it a short answer, long answer? It was
Yeah.
really a long answer, really long answer to a short question. I think.
No, the interesting thing that you touched upon, like on the Gen AI hype cycle, kind of died out. And what are some of the learnings that you hear from the folks that who attempted or tried and what worked for them, what didn't work for them? Is there any learning from that side of it?
I think most of the use cases were largely whatever I've heard, right? And in the enterprise space, again, the tech companies are quite different. They adopt tech at scale is largely geared towards support platforms or services platform or
Mhm.
HR based Gen AI use case where it's mostly geared to internal use cases. And over there itself, couple of points, right? One is the skill set availability. While they have a few data scientists who are working on more enterprise related use cases, whether it is optimizing for cost, optimizing for example, we had a chat with a automobile industry uh, leader, an AI leader, leading leading two wheeler segment based in India. He was part of a session that we were doing, and he basically said my main use case in AI, and they have a very good level of maturity, is optimizing for supply chain, optimizing for routes, etc. So I think those are not necessarily Gen AI; they're just AI based platform, and they're embracing Gen AI to bring a bit of unstructured information, whether it is documents that is passed on to truck drivers and different taxation department, etc. They're evolving there. But I think the challenges being highlighted, number one is skill set availability. Number two was cost. Number three is getting the data out of the enterprise is always a big question mark, at least in enterprises. Right.
Mhm.
So can I move my data to a public LLM engine? Uh, and I need more private data. I can't send all my data. Are they training at my cost? And last but not the least, customers sitting in India uh, who are selling into Europe market, selling into the US market, Australia, have a lot of explainability to do in terms of what what are they using for as part of their AI platform? Can they explain the different models, etc.? And if they're using an LLM, can they also can the model let them know where all the data was sent, how the data was used, etc. So where did the data come from, etc. So I think this whole explainability and traceability also is a question mark that they lay down. I think what was the number one denominator was cost, and this whole can I explain my model, etc. So I think these two was widely discussed in a lot of these discussions that I had on GenAI. But I believe at least with the customer base that I have spoken to over the last couple of weeks, I think not a lot of maturity, not a lot of production deployments yet, but the promise remains. I think I'm a big fan of the future and the promise of Gen AI and the promise of AI maturity that we would see in enterprise is going to be really big. It's going to be like a hockey stick growth, right? Next 1 or 2 years, we're going to see a heavy uplift in terms of adoption of AI at every user persona level.
Mhm.
That's going to be major. Uh, but at what cost? At what trust can I drive that trust? Can I drive that cost inference? I think that's going to be the fundamental denominator in a lot of these use cases.
Okay. So you also mentioned about data literacy requires rebirth. That is like a big statement. So and we talked about LLM hype cycle. It's all very. Do you think it's kind of a correlated thing that you are into this whole data mesh? Oh, sorry, the real
Mess,
mesh, not the
MESS, right?
yeah, yes, yes. And then this LLM hype cycle, there's a lack of talent pool available there, and the integration still they're very very expensive that you are kind of saying. Is that some way connected to that we kind of move away some of this investment from data literacy? If a company has to come back, like hey, I want to introduce some kind of a data literacy investment there. Like, what would you suggest to bring people into this?
I think data literacy was definitely a hot topic, right? A couple of years back, at the end stage of what I call as the BI hype cycle, right? BI was very popular. It had a trough. It was not. It was definitely a tick mark. It was required in most of your use cases as a consuming interface. And at that particular point in time, we had a lot of data literacy programs that was run by the CDAO organization to ensure that people are able to consume the dashboards and make sense out of the dashboards and ask questions, right? So you've got a lot of vendors have these NLP based programs that can operate on top of BI dashboards as well. So this whole idea of hey, understand your data and start asking questions around the data, right? So and understand why you're using this report and what metrics can you derive of that report and the whole notion of if I have to communicate and make changes, how can I make these changes? This whole self analytics required those data literacy initiatives for them to complement that. But that I think trickled away over the last couple of years, and there was not much of investment that was happening for data literacy programs. The whole tech investment life cycle around, hey, I want to modernize to Snowflake, to Databricks, basically ensure that not a lot of investment happen on the BI side, while a lot of migrations do happen from one vendor to another vendor. That's a function of finance requirement or a feature requirement. I think I believe a lot of not a lot of investments had gone into the data literacy life cycle, and now with Gen AI, it's all the more important, right? Asking the right questions, right? I think the whole notion of prompt engineers coming up as a persona into the overall life cycle with Gen AI is also important. Now, can a business user ask the right question is more important, and can the business user explain an end consumer, right? If they're sharing data, how did the data come from, etc. I think the whole data literacy program needs a rebirth. I think it's a far more important right now for organizations to also augment their data literacy programs as well, right? So now just don't focus on what can you get out of the data, the importance of data, etc. I think that's foundational. Everybody understands that, but I think how do you communicate with data? How do you consume data?
Right.
And I think I'm going to just shift gears a little bit into data products, because I think for both you and me, I think we've had several conversations. This whole product thinking mindset should be built in the consumers of consumers of data. And I use this example very often, and I think people who have listened to me in the past would find this very boring. I feel every time you give a pack of Lay's classic chips to anyone, you kind of pretty much know that when you're consuming it, you're going to taste the salt, right? You're gonna have a salty flavor. The experience is consistent whether you're consuming that pack of Lays in America, a pack of Lays in India, or in Australia. But I know a recent YouTube guy did point out that the India pack of Lays is made with palm oil. The other countries use a different version of oil, so there's a different in there could be a different minor difference in flavor and taste or the ingredient that's being used, but there's consistency largely, right? So in terms of what the end user experiences now, data literacy programs which are getting a rebirth should also ensure that people understand that product thinking mindset is feeded into the business users, the data consumers, so that they can put the load in terms of their design teams and technical teams in terms of, hey, I want to consume a product, I want to consume a finished good, so that I'm able to have a consistent experience, right? And I want to understand how the product is built, where is it coming from, expectations in terms of when I want it, etc. I think that product thinking should also be added into the data literacy programs. Is what I feel
Yeah.
would be a game changer for me. Thoughts
Yeah.
from your end, man?
Yeah, totally. I think interestingly that you touched upon data product, and Gartner has been on data fabric and the data mesh. Like the one of the founding concept of data mesh is like kind of data product, and we've seen a lot of noise around data products right now. But again, like there's still a bit of a confusion around what is really data product. There's like I was having conversation with one person, like trying to give some kind of a textbook definition of data product, what it is like. Individual unit can run on its own. A composable unit is kind of a Docker model that they're kind of trying to tell. But again, like the one of the very interesting explanation that I got for data product is from one of my former colleague, Slack. Actually, was kind of telling there is three layers in the data that are essentially moving. Right, there is like data instrumentation, there's kind of data ingestion side, and data transformation, and the third layer is where you're creating value for the data out of it. And that's where the BI systems kind of work. People kind of term that in kind of a medallion architecture side of it. But his point is like data product comes in the intersection of all three layers. There will be like an ingestion specific data product because anywhere that you do a handoff between one phase to another
Yeah.
phase, that you are essentially exposing a public API, and that's where the data product essentially comes in to play. Whereas the many people kind of think about like data product as like one kind of a metric that we're producing in the end side of it. So there is like confusions around like what is really a data product. I think that makes like very hard to kind of communicate
It
to the
is, I think it's going to be hard to define
yeah.
it in the current state, but we pretty much can define what is not a data product, right?
Mhm.
I think that metric is a lot more easier to define. A data object is not a data product. A
Yeah.
data table is not a data product. And there are reasoning behind why you would not call them as data product, because they do not have certain behaviors of what you typically call as a product, an end product, right? They do not tell you how the data is formed, where is it coming from. It does not have access mechanisms which is beyond a one dimensional access. For example, a BI tool uh, gives you one dimensional access, but can I write a query on top of my BI dashboard and then slice and dice it? No. Can I get that BI dashboard output as an API? Probably different tools provide you. I think the consuming experience also needs to be varied, right? So I think what is not a data product is far easier to define. To me, if I were to build a data product stack, that would be observability. Because if you take any product, any end product uh, that we consume, whether it's a mobile phone, if you look into the box, it tells you the SAR ratio, it tells you how do you use it, how do you dispose of if there is a problem, etc. I think the whole narrative needs to be feeded in back into your finished data products. There could be intermediate data products as well. It is around observability metrics. How do you consume it? How do you dispose it? How is the data being formed? What is it built up of? And who should I reach out in case of if I have problems?
Right.
These are intel. These are information that needs to be foundational there. And as part of that, you then have what you call as a data product builder life cycle. It
Mhm.
is not. You can take inference from your data life cycle today, but I think there needs to be a lot more simple layer around what you call as a data product builder. Have tools to move in data, have tools to build the trustability of the data, but more importantly, drive adoption of the data product. Right? I think
Mhm.
if product is not being used, it'll be a table, which with all the fancy attributes, that end product. Right? So I think the entire experience of how to consume data, being providing a marketplace for people to shop for data. I think that kind of is a value layer that I foresee that a lot of tooling is going to happen around in the near term, and you will see a lot of announcements from the vendors over the next couple of 6 months, 1 year. That whole data product builder life cycle from start to end, from data origination to data consumption,
Right.
and everything in between is going to be a big space. And I did offline here a couple from a couple of the conversations that I had in Gartner, that they're also promoting a similar architecture as well.
Okay. So interesting that you're kind of pitching like data product as a separate category completely. Is that a right assumption that I'm making, or like do you think
I
it's a separate
I
category?
think it's a shift in mindset,
Okay.
but I think it also has to have a shift in technology as well, right?
Mhm.
I think you can relook. I don't think a lot of the tech investments that has been made already is going to go waste. All
Mhm.
of that makes a lot of sense. What
Yeah.
you're now focusing is how you build it, right?
Right.
You're not going to change Snowflake. You're not going to change your foundational data stack. You don't even have to re-architect a lot of your ingestion layer, your pipeline layer, etc. But
Right.
for your consuming interface, and again, if you were to put a medallion architecture, you don't have to put data product builder at every phase, but it moves towards the right, which is a consumer. It's all for the consumer problem. But you also try and bring some of the concepts of data of how you would naturally build a product. Right? Let's say you're trying to build a product. You start from your business use case, but you also want to go as close as possible to the source and start building in some of those best practices. But in the first phase of what I call as a data product lifecycle, ideal data product lifecycle, it starts with a consuming interface. You solve for the consumer in a different set of interfaces that he wants, and then start building some of the mandatory aspects that we discussed, like observability, contracting. Like, can I at least ensure that the schema is consistent? Right, that's like the bare minimal step that I will maintain. Can I at least ensure that the data is available at 9 o'clock in the morning every day? It's always fresh. It's always available. A decent level of trustability, right?
Mhm.
50% good. That's my threshold for my business to operate. 50% validity, things like that. So I think that would be that first layer of data product builder. It's not going to drastically change a lot of your tech investments, but there will be some tooling that is required that can orchestrate this entire life cycle. I don't think there are tech tools today that could be able to orchestrate the entire life cycle. I could be wrong, but I think you will see a lot more tooling around this particular landscape.
Right, totally. I think yeah, that's some of the things that I've been working on something on that like very long time. So it's kind of very fascinating topic for me. One of the things that I found out right now, what is lacking in the current tech stack is the efficient change management system, because when you're building a product, it's not going to remain static, right? It's going to change all the time, and your upstream going to change, your downstream going to change. Like there's so many change system happening, and then like how do you make sure that your data product is going to be reliable, and then handling the change management, proper way to kind of test out different versions of the data products. That's kind of a bigger challenge there. Uh,
That's the tech challenge. I think the entire life cycle needs to be able to orchestrate that. Interestingly, you also bring a topic, and I think I should give credit to Robert. This is his example. He and I were discussing around what is a data product, and he said a data object is not a data product. A data table is not a data product. And he said the only reason is it cannot be version controlled, right? So how do you manage the version of a data product also needs to be thought about, right? I release a product and it's not working for the business. I need to retire it and move it to a previous version. Can you do it to a data table? That's a question mark, right? With all the testing, right? If you're reverting back, again, you need to test it. You need to test it, do the entire CI/CD process, and move that code along with the version, the data
Right.
as well. So I think that level of tooling, again, for this podcast, we're not going to peel the onion and go tech. We're
Right.
not showing slides here. So I think that level of tech is required.
Yeah, yeah, totally, completely agree with that one. Finally, we like, what is the existing tool that you see potentially can claim that we are a data product builder, right? You can ask any of the categories. Like, let's say data catalog can claim, like, we do everything. Right, it's not a very we are the center of the universe, right? Like every tool, that's one of the flaw why modern data stack like significantly fell out, is like every different category thought themselves they are the whole notion of this, the Unix philosophy mindset, that says like, okay, we have this unique terminal and then you can pipe out everything that goes on. But the only challenge is that every category wanted to be that terminal,
Yeah,
because the moment you became the piped command, you are easily replaceable. Right,
yeah,
so everyone trying to breach that, and then we see the category kind of merging and all those other aspect of it. That now we're talking about the data product builder as like a separate kind of a model, that the different thought process or how you kind of approach the data assets.
yeah.
If you have to map that with the modern data stacks and this whole data product thinking, how do you think this whole thing's going to play around?
Yeah, I'll probably ask the question back to you again, but I need your viewpoints on this, Anand. But I think I believe some of the existing tech stack that customers have can be reused to build data products currently. While I also believe there would be more intelligent tooling, more data product oriented catalogs that will emerge to support some of the pointers that we discussed for customers. I don't think they should look at the tooling that is going to come up. That's definitely important, but that may or may not exist today. But what they should do is look internally and see how can I create that experience for my end user, right? How
Mhm.
can I deliver data rightly? How can I improve the trustability of my data? How can I have those what Rajesh then refers to as non-functional requirements? Those basic attributes of what builds a product. I think those you can start to build with the tech investments that you probably have made or you're in the progress of making, right? But I think I'll also would like to reiterate there will be a lot more abstraction that's going to happen on this layer and a lot more simplification so that you're able to manage this entire life cycle a lot more easier through integrated offerings. The tooling is going to evolve there, but nothing stops you from building a data product even today, right?
Right.
Even within whatever BI tool that you use.
Yeah, I guess the integrated tooling experience is what important, right? Like, my business goal is to build a data products. My business goal is not to interconnect my data observability, my data testing, my data catalogs, and like tagging them with like a data product and all those things.
That's the problem with the stack,
Yeah,
right?
that's the
That's a
problem.
problem.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel the way I feel like
Somebody has to solve it.
yeah, the way I feel like, if you think like, what is the, we're talking about the modern data stack, apart from it running in the cloud, the Redshift kind of the world came from this Google BigQuery. Like that's one of the bigger innovation happened, right? Like, clear separation of the storage and compute, and then the whole data scalability of the database layer, data warehouse layer, and the lakehouse. The very foundational layer has a lot of innovations going on, right? Like, we're not talking about
S3,
like
object stores.
object storage, and like there's a ton of investment. There are a ton of innovations. But if you talk like to the data management layer, if you think like we call this data modern data stack, if you think like last 20, 25 years, what is the innovation happen? Nothing. We take the data catalog and put a nice UI, and we claim that this is a next gen data catalog. This is like the similar functionality is already available in like 20 years back.
Yeah.
Very in a bad UI. Data testing is available. SSIS package has like everything available there. We have not yet done a significant innovation in the data management layer. That's a hard thought fact, right? We
I think
just
I'll give credit to a modern data stack on it. and probably differ in opinion on this, right? So it's, I think modern data stack made a lot of these aspects easier for people to use, right?
Right.
So like the ingestion layer was made easy. The catalog layer had, I would not say adoption. Adoption is a wrong word because
Yeah.
catalog sees far less adoption. We did our own surveys there, right? So we've, both you and me have spoken there to a lot of users as well to kind of validate that adoption layer. But I think made it simpler for people to embrace that technology within
Right.
the organization
Yeah.
without going through serious complexity. I think the whole notion of, hey, don't worry about how do you build a data stack. We're making it simple. I think that's the whole core outcome of MDS initiative, like last 4 5 years. I think that's something we have all collectively achieved as an industry. I think we should give credit to where it's due. But yeah, you're right. Meaning we need more mature tooling in terms of to manage their end-to-end life cycle. I think it's a function of maturity. I think now that we understand how that end state should look like, automation that is required, the whole experience of how can I do testing of my data, right? So the whole data testing itself is very new, relatively new to the world of data. It was always done data level testing, but if I'm releasing something, the whole DevOps life cycle, which becomes now data ops, right? So I think that entire life cycle of things before the code hits production. For data related use cases is relatively new, and then maturity is then catching up. That integrated tooling as a layer, like you said, will eventually be built,
Yeah.
and probably some catalog companies will become data product companies as well.
Yeah, I guess my key criticism on modern data stack, like I completely agree that we significantly improved the usability and then if efficiently scale, deploying things. But that credit goes most to the cloud native version of it, right? Like from 2008, like a lot of companies have moved to cloud based org, and not many on premise kind of utilizing what modern data stack is kind of trying to do that one, right? It's purely cloud play, has a lot of flexibility to kind of do that one. But what is fundamentally changed from 2008 to now? Every company is dealing with petabytes of data. What used to be the Google problem, now every company's problem, right? But if you think of the data catalog as a concept, it's remaining the same. And the data testing, I'm not talking about data catalog alone, like the whole data management layer, it's remaining, the concept remains the same. My real question is like, there's a the Titanic ship happened, the amount of data that we are kind of processing and dealing with that one. And there is the the organizational structure changes. We are kind of doing a lot of a lot of citizen developers building their own thing thanks to maybe modern data stack of the simplicity of creating these new data sets,
Yeah,
and so on. Now the question essentially I wanted to leave with, like, is there a fundamental need to rethink the data management layer? Right? Like, is that a same concept? Like, we can't follow the same category, and then we just kind of adding a new layer, like a new tool with a nice usability, nice thing. Should we kind of rethink from a first principle perspective, like what does it really mean to have a petabytes of data to be managed in our ecosystem, right? So
yeah, I think absolutely yes. But I also would say we need to solve for what you call as multimodal persona, multi-persona kind of an ecosystem, right? So today you have the data engineers who prefer writing code. So they like writing code, and you have the analyst persona who needs something like a SQL or a GUI based tool, and then
right.
you have the business user persona who needs interfaces like a BI tool. Some people also write SQL here, and some like the Amazons of the world want to expose everything as an API. So the consuming interfaces needs a different way of dealing with data or connecting with data. I think, but this connected experience, right? I think is a very good way. I think the stack would evolve. Uh, as a business user, I'm writing some logic which is on a GUI, and I'm putting in a logic. But as a tech user, I'm here to infer that logic, and I don't want to use another GUI tool, right? So that itself is an unsolved problem in the data management. But I want to basically fork out and then say, hey, I'm going to write a code. I think we had a chat offline, if I'm not wrong, on how probably AWS is launching something, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think that unified experience across different user personas, but also combining and rethinking around, like instead of adding layers of the onion peel, because of all the past experiences that we have collectively gathered as an industry for the last 2 or 3 years, I
Right.
pretty much know what is my non-negotiable item today. And
Mhm.
that's, we have learned it the hard way, right? We have solved for compute problems, we've solved for a lot of things. We now
Right.
know observability is a non-negotiable item for most of my critical data elements. We
Right.
now know that I need to also, when I am shipping data, I need to do certain set of testing. I need to automate certain things. The whole data ops movement comes into picture.
Mhm.
The whole data quality, which was always an afterthought after the data entered the stage or the silver layer, uh, now can be relooked differently with the whole AI coming into picture. Right? Can I intelligently identify problems? I think, to your point, probably we'll wait for the viewers to comment as well. Uh, we can definitely relook for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Totally. I think this is like AI readiness. How far data product gonna be
But
becoming?
is that relooking and rethinking a data product? Is a question mark. I leave it to you probably, and for everybody to comment.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to invite a lot of guests, and this is one of the burning topic that we kind of keep asking people to understand a little more and see how the industry gonna evolve from here, right? And the developers are always kind of hungry for the next big abstraction. So we don't know what is the next big abstraction. So great, thank you so much, Ashwin, for spending your time and sharing your learning from Gartner Summit and all your the customer talks and all the things. Great to see.
Thanks a lot, Anand. Thanks everyone. Thank you.
See you next time. Thank you, everyone.